Hello, everyone. I am Melissa Esplin. It's so fun watching the chat and seeing where everybody's coming in from. It's awesome seeing just pretty much everywhere in the United States represented. It's awesome. So I am from Utah. I live on top of the snow-capped mountains of Utah. We finally thawed out after a very long winter. So I'm excited to talk about jelly roll pens and specifically how we can use those to decorate the exteriors of our journals. I have a lot of journals that I use, and it's really fun to be able to customize those so that I know exactly what I'm looking at. So we're going to do that today. I am going to put, this is a link to the handouts in the chat. I can copy and paste that multiple times. The handouts are these cute little, it's a little alphabet for you. It's a single case alphabet that has some decorative elements to it and some, we are able to decorate it in different ways, and I'll break that down a little bit. So that's what we will be mainly focusing on, is how to apply that and the doodling decorative elements as a border. So we will do that. I will work primarily on a black notebook. So I'm just working on black paper, simply because it's just easier for each of you to see everything all at a glance. But I do have notebooks here that I can also decorate, and we can do those together. And I'll break down how to troubleshoot writing on the covers of journals. So a couple of things real quick. I'm going to switch my camera view, and I really hope that my camera battery is working. So my apologies if we have any technical difficulties. So here we go. Here is my black notebook, and I'm going to turn on picture in picture. There we go. Here are my little notes. I have the Sakura retractable pens. If you're not familiar with the retractable pens, this is a really fun new product that Sakura came out with the beginning of last month. And these are completely reformulated. So they're the jelly rolls that we know and love, but because it retracts and doesn't actually have a cap on it like we're used to, they had to redo the formula of the ink. And honestly, it's a really, it's a bit of an improvement. It's smoother, it's really great. Thank you, Felicia, for resending the link to the notes. I am going to be working primarily with the metallic and the classic jelly roll pen colors because those work best on black. The other colors available that I love are, you've got like these classic colors right here, the blue, the red, and the black, and then we have glitter. They don't show up quite as well on black, but they're really fantastic on white. We're mainly going to focus on these that show up on black because it's just super fun. Now let's talk about how to hold the pen, how to get the most out of our jelly roll pens, and how to troubleshoot if we're having any problems. Because I want you to feel successful in this class. I've been doing calligraphy and hand lettering for a very long time. I started doing, my hand lettering journey really started when I was in kindergarten doing bubble letters. I opened up my own stationery company at 15. It did not go anywhere, but and then I started picking up the pen and paper in 2009, and it's all been kind of over from there. So I have a few hours of practice under my belt. If you feel like what you're creating is not exactly what you're seeing on my screen, it's okay. What I want you to do is to I want to give you confidence. I want to teach some theory-based techniques in this particular project so that you can apply this to anything. Chitra asked if we can also apply the decorating inside the journal, and yes, we can. So these tools you can apply inside the journal, but I love having it on the outside so that we can do some fun things like, so this is a journal that I decorated just before I went out of town. I put my name on it so people know whose journal it is. I would have put my phone number on it, but I don't want to put my phone number on social. So that's the reason why it's not on there. But it's a really great way to differentiate the different journals that you're keeping, and make sure that people know who to give it back to if somehow it gets lost. So that's one of the purposes in this. So let's talk about these pens. And as with all of the classes that I teach, I first and foremost teach grip. We always talk about grip. That's one of the very first things that I like to talk about. Do we have any lefties? If we have lefties, I think we do, yes. So calligraphy is for lefties and for righties. It is universal. It's for left brain and right brain people. It is for creative people and people who think they're more analytical. It's for everyone. So I will demonstrate how to hold the pen both left and right-handed. And why do I talk about how to hold the pen? What is the reason for this? And it is primarily to give you the longevity that you need so that you can write forever. So let's talk about a tripod grasp. This is the standard grasp that we learned in hopefully kindergarten or preschool. And we hold the pen in between our index finger and our thumb. It's the same for both righty and lefty. And your index finger and thumb are literally on opposite sides of the barrel of the pen. Then from here, we take our middle finger and we support the underside of the barrel of the pen with our middle finger. Our ring fingers and pinky fingers don't do anything. They're the laziest ones of the bunch, and they just get tucked underneath and get out of the way. This is the tripod grasp. The barrel of the pen really ideally sits on top of the knuckle of your index finger. You don't want it to come down into this pit area right here, because what happens is it pushes the barrel of the pen down, and what happens is you end up with your thumb either coming over to compensate and then a kinked wrist. So there are a lot of compensations that happen when you let the barrel of the pen kind of get down into this pit rather than sit on top of the knuckle. And this can cause all sorts of physical problems, carpal tunnel, fatigued muscles. The muscle structure of your fingers is much smaller than the muscle structure of your whole arm. So we want to have a grasp where we use as little of the muscle in our hands as possible. We rely more on the muscles in our arms and our shoulders, because those muscles can handle a bigger workload. So Kavya asked, do we need Sakura pens or are regular gel pens fine? Regular gel pens are fine, but I love Sakura Jelly Roll pens. They are my absolute favorite. I've been using these since I was 10 and I've been obsessed with them ever since. So I highly recommend getting your hands on a set of Jelly Roll retractables, but whatever you have on hand is great. Whether it's a pen, a pencil, a chalk marker, whatever you have, you can work with. So that is one of the great things about this particular class, is it can be applied in just about any medium. So we want to maintain this tripod grasp where it sits on our knuckle here and we have a very relaxed finger structure. This is what we want to think about. If you tend to have a really hard time holding the pen really tight, the best way to relax it is take a pen or any sort of instrument in your non-dominant hand and hold that tight. Then in your writing hand, your grip will naturally loosen. So that's something to think about if you're working towards changing your grip and changing how tightly you hold it. So that is one tip. The other thing that I want you to think about is how hard are you pressing on the paper surface itself. So let's talk about how the functionality of this pen, the actual mechanics of the Jelly Roll pen. The cool thing about this pen is, so you've got this metal barrel right here, this that holds the ball, which has the ink encapsulated inside of it. So the ball is free moving. Now, if you don't press hard at all, nothing comes out. So it doesn't leak, which is great. And if you press just a little bit, you may feel the roller ball inside that metal barrel kind of click back, and that allows the ink to come forward. But if I press too hard, what happens instead is, instead of clicking back the barrel, it shoves, or the ball, sorry, it shoves the ball and can oftentimes dent the ball. So then it keeps the ball from moving very evenly. So the trick to get really good, even ink movement out of any Jelly Roll pen is actually a lighter touch. You don't want to press harder. It's definitely one of those things that it's really tempting to press hard if the ink is just not flowing, but that's the thing that you want to avoid. So a couple of things that you can do if the ink is just not flowing quite like you want it to. The ink on this pen is flowing really well, but if it's not, a couple things that you can do is just roll the pen around, rotate it around like this. Sometimes there will be ink crusted on the exterior of that roller ball where the roller ball meets the barrel. And so if you roll that off, then it'll get any crustiness off, and then you can just depress the roller ball just a little bit, do a stippling-like effect, and keep on writing. And if you're still having problems with getting the ink to flow, use a hot washcloth and soak that, and then again, try writing. But the trick really is, don't press hard. I tell that to everyone who ever borrows one of my pens, if I let them borrow my pens, to not press hard. That really is the biggest trick. So now that we are successfully getting great marks coming out of our lines, let's talk about the structure of everything, what we're going to do. Okay, I'm going to answer a couple of questions real quick. So are all of the styles available as retractable? No, not at this time. So the only styles available, if they're in limited colors at the moment, these are the colors currently available in the retractable style. So we've got a few metallics, a few Stardust, a few classics, and that's it for now. But I sure hope that we have all of like the moon, what are they called? The moonlight ones. Those are my favorites. Those are really, really great. The pink that is available is in the Stardust or the glitter. And it is really great, but it doesn't show up well on black. So see how it was just struggling just a little bit. But I'm twisting the barrel around in my hand, doing some stippling effects, and the ink is starting to flow. But that is the pink. It just doesn't show up great on black because it's the glitter pen. Okay, let's talk about the structure of our project. So we are going to do this design here. And the first thing that we want to do is the hardest thing, and that is the lettering. So we want to work on the lettering and then work our way out. So I'm going to grab my pencil. This is from Sakura. This is the 0.9. Hold on, let's get this focused. That's the 0.9 mechanical pencil. Any pencil will work. a little known fact is that pencils work great for making guidelines on black paper because it does have a shiny effect. You see, that's my pencil marking. We don't need to make really strong, bold markings. We just need a little faint line. So we're going to use that to make our markings. What we will do is, I already have guidelines marked out here, horizontal guidelines. If you are going to work on your notebook, you want to create some guidelines for yourself. You can use a ruler, but because of the nature of this particular style that we're working with, you don't necessarily need perfectly straight lines. So you can use your pencil and just roughly sketch out your lines. And that totally works. So I use a fairly light touch, but I want to make a slight mark. And this is really important because this gives me a threshold. Even though it's not perfectly straight or perfectly parallel, my eyes will see this, and it'll still work. The eye will see this consistency, even though it's very organic. Okay, Tara asks the question, I've always had trouble with the white. Is the retractable better? Yes, the white retractable is really great. I've really enjoyed it a lot. It still has great opacity, and it's milkier, it's like a wetter ink, if that makes sense. But it dries really quickly. And then Tara asked the question, do you suggest the same approach with Stardust pens? I only purchased one set and they feel gritty. Is this normal? The grittiness that you're feeling is probably, I mean, I don't know exactly, but it's possible that the grittiness is the barrel is, or the ball that's rolling around in the barrel is somehow not perfectly round. But the Stardust is really great. It's very smooth. Okay. And Kavya asked, do we do it on a piece of paper for this and use it after in a notebook, or do we do it on a notebook now? Great question. We can do it on the notebook right now, but I will probably be making extra markings just to show you what you can do. It's entirely up to you. The nice thing about this is this is getting recorded, so you can rewatch this on YouTube and fast forward through parts and make it on your own. So first, I'm going to draw a box, and this is roughly in the middle of my page. I may make the box just a little bit bigger. And what I'm going to do, if I want to make this centered, I want to break down the word notes. So let's get the green, N-O-T-E-S. So notes is 5 letters, T is in the middle, N and S are on each end. So in order to get good, even spacing, I'm going to write this word out of order. I'm going to just sketch in my N, and it's like a lowercase n, and I'm going to sketch in my S. It's just like every other S, but it kind of is fat and round. Then I'm going to sketch in my T. And actually, I'm going to move my T over just a little bit because I think I don't have enough room for a really fat O. So I have a T here. Then I'm going to write my E. I can actually do a lowercase e, or sorry, I'm going to do this E like we have in the handouts. And then a fat O. So I'm doing things out of order just to make sure that my spacing is good. And I'm doing it in pencil beforehand. The reason for this is because I want to be able to adjust as I go and not feel like, oh crap, I'm committed to this and I don't like how it looks. Okay. So we are going to write in notes, and I'm going to start with blue. And I'm going to come over here and just get a good swatch going. And we're going to write everything in order once we've penciled it out of order. So I'm going to write, my N starts with a nice, strong downstroke, which is 2 lines next to each other. And then I'm going to create my serif by just coming beyond those lines and finishing them off. I may have jerked around a little bit. That's fine. We can fix that in a little bit. So I've got my like staple part of the end done. I'm going to do this nice rounded arch here. This is our overturn. I'm going to start on this secondary line, work my way all the way to the top of that guideline, come down, and I'm going to have a little tiny hook, just a little baby hook. Then I want to branch ever so smoothly off of this center point right here. I'm going to start on the line and I'm going to slowly move out so that I have this much thickness at this point in my line. So I'm going to draw in the secondary line, and then I'm going to meet up with the hook right there. Okay, so there I've got this really nice letter N, and I have these 2 blank spaces for my thick strokes. I want to keep that blank for now. Okay, now I'm going to draw the O, and the O is fat and round, and we're going to take up pretty much the whole space that we have top to bottom. It's going to go up and around, and this is a very wonky oval or circle. It's not entirely perfect, but that's okay. I'm going to try and build up my line to make it a little bit better. Then from this top point to this bottom point here, I'm going to go from thin to thick to thin. Build up that stroke, and I want about the same width between these 2 lines as these 2 lines. I want to keep that thickness about the same. I'm going to come around here and do the same thing. I start on the same line, I move away from it towards that middle point, and then I finish back up at this bottom point. So now I have 2 nice open shades. That's what they're called, is shades. Okay, Letty, I am sending the handouts again to the main. Oops. Here we go. Okay, so then I'm going to work on the letter T. The T starts just like the N did, with these 2 strong, sturdy vertical lines, about the same width apart as the N. I want to keep that pretty consistent. I'm going to put that line across the bottom that extends beyond the 2 lines. And then I'm going to draw the crossbar on my T. We can get fun with this. We can dip down and up. So if I want to dip down, I can go behind this O that I drew and up like that. Do something fun. But the T, it either ends in a ball terminal or a serif that's vertical. So we have our vertical serif, it just goes down, and I like to branch that nice and neat. Okay, the E is where we have a little bit of trickiness. We have 2 ovals or circles that are stacked on top of each other like a snowman. I'm going to draw the top part of the E. So the top part is smaller than the bottom part. comes around and in about that halfway point. So this is like the halfway point of our E. Stops right about there. And then I finish off this bottom oval up like that. Now let's add the weight to it. Just like we did with the O, we start on the same line. We swell into this thicker stroke. So we come over here, we swell out into this thicker stroke, come up, we do the same thing here. Now let's finish off the E right here by adding this little blip. So what we're doing is we're coming up a little bit past the original line that we made, and then we're drawing, we're connecting those lines together. Okay. All right. Now we're going to do the S. The S is also like a snowman, where we have these two ovals that are stacked on top of each other. Okay. And we're going to draw our S all the way around and up. And this part, we want to add the shade to the bottom. If the top part is too big, you draw the shade on the top. If the top part is just right, then you draw the shade on the bottom. But we want to start here at this kind of 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock point, sorry, 10 o'clock point, somewhere around there. We start on the line, we swell out to about that same thickness, and then we come back at this, 4 o'clock point. And then here we add some thickness here, and we add some thickness here. So now we have these really nice, yeah, Tracy, I'll move my view back to on top. My camera decided to turn off. Let's hope nope, it's not on right now. Let me try and switch cables real quick. Okay. I think we've got it charging now. Okay. So now that we have this completed, we can play around with the inside of the notes. Yes, Ruby said, do we fill in the lines now? Yes, we can fill in the lines. We can do some really fun things with it. So I'm going to grab my purple and I'm going to fill this in. I'm going to actually show you a few different ways that we can fill it in. So we've got the purple, we can fill it in just all the way from top to bottom. I'll do it with the N. Fill this in. And then once I'm done filling that in, I can get like a white and do little details on top of it. I like to visualize just like a line coming straight across these letters. And I like to do a dot in the thickest part of the shade along that center line. So I'll come to the middle of this and I'll do a nice little white dot. And one of the things about these Jelly Roll pens is you want to give it some time to dry if you're going to layer a lot of different colors on top of each other. so I didn't give it a whole lot of time to dry and set up. So my ink colors are running together just a little bit, but that adds this little highlight to my letter. And if I go all the way across with the same style, that kind of adds some really fun details. Okay, other things that we could do, we can draw lines. So I'm going to rotate my paper 90 degrees, and I'm going to draw little hash marks. So just like this, I'm going to draw little hash marks along my O. And what this does is it creates this nice shadow effect. And you can get like your silver or your gold, and you can fill in a couple of those little spots, like those top few spots. And then maybe we do some other colors. I'm just really drawing like little dots inside these shapes, and it creates a shaded effect. So Ruby says, I only have white, so I use black paper, but you can use either. Okay. So we can do something like this. The other thing that we can do is we can create a little dot. Hold on. We get the green. You can get a dot. Build it up. And then do little hash marks on either side. Kind of do a little ball and then flick. And that creates kind of this fun Western shape. Now, once I come to the E, this E is split up into two different sections. So how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? Yeah, the purple is somehow, like, it was working just fine for me earlier. So I'm gonna try and just, I don't wanna like waste a whole lot of time getting my purple to work. It usually works just fine, but I have some hot water right here to get that to work. Yeah, it's not worth messing with this too much. Oh, here we go. So I'm just rotating, sorry, it's off screen. I'm just rotating the pen inside my hand, and that helps flush out any dried or crusty ink. It happens occasionally, not all the time, but see, there we go. So when I'm working on something like this oval right here, these two ovals, what I want to do is break it in half and do my decoration on each one. So if I'm doing a dot in the middle, I'll do another dot in the middle of here. And that breaks up the space, maybe even here and here as well. So that's another way to approach it. Let's see what, here we go, I've got the silver. The silver is really fun. The silver is incredibly bright. I don't know if you can really tell in on the screen here, but it's almost reflective. It's awesome. So we've got all these different ways that we can approach drawing in and decorating the interior of these lines here. You can really just fill it in. It's totally fine. You can keep it simple. So from here, now I want to talk about decorating and doodling. This is just a really great way to fill the space in your journals without feeling like, oh, I have to draw something representative. It's really, really great to to have these little doodles in your back pocket, just so that you can really play around and have fun, and it's kind of meditative. So what I'm going to do here is pencil in a bigger border area. And this bigger border area is going to be where I want my cloud shapes to be. I want the cloud shapes to kind of tuck in around that particular shape. So I've rough sketched that, and I'm going to draw these nice big round shapes. So it looks like a backwards 3, or it looks like a regular 3, but just with a really like a top heavy 3. Then I come around here and not touching, I just go next to it and I draw another set of loops. Maybe I spiral it into itself a little bit. And I really like breaking up the space and having this like white space in between these little flourishes that create the cloud. So I'm roughly going along this square here. So it's keeping its main structure. Then from here, I'm going to draw another pencil line. And this is the area that I want to, this is where I want to stop the decoration. So everything outside this border is going to be plain. So a couple things that we can do. We're going to focus on first these little sunbursts where we're hugging the curvature of the cloud that we made, but we're doing it in these radial lines. So I'm going to first, I'm thinking about it like in terms of, see how I have this circular shape right here? This is about the interior point, right? All these lines are radiating around this circular shape. So I'm going to start small and work larger and then go small again. So I'm just radiating like that. I'm going to do that over here. And I don't want all of these decorations to be on one side or on the other. I'm interspersing them throughout my design. So maybe I'll do it here as well. And I can rotate my paper however I want to make sure that I get really good positioning. Okay, so we've done a few blue strokes. Let's switch colors. So we've got a pretty even distribution of these radial lines. I'm going to get my green. Oh goodness. You'll have to bear with me for just a minute while I just switch camera angles. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do are these scallops. We're going to do the scallops. We're going to do them around the other spots that we didn't get. So I'm just going to start slow and work my way around. And just add them in various spots. I think I'll add some here. So it's starting to fill up. We're seeing this is a better fill of our lines, which is really good. So I'm going to just move this a little bit. Hopefully you can see a little bit better. So we're filling this out a little bit, and as we go, we can do a couple of things to these scallops. Okay, we can add little decorations in between, like little teardrops in between, maybe switching and getting another color, doing little dots. And then we can do fish scales. So we can grab same color and do some fish scales. Let's see, we'll do some here. So I'm going from the apex of one scallop to the apex of the other and creating a scallop shape. So see how I have this pencil marking here? I don't want to go past that pencil marking. I want to stick within that. So I may finish that up. Just keep that there. I can go inside this fish scale and do a little teardrop. And that gold just makes it look so fun. You can have a little teardrop coming from the cloud. So we've got that cool shape there. Then we have, we can do some, like, they look like wheat sheaves, a little bit, that guy right there. So we can do little lines, little dots inside here, and do it on the other side of our cloud line. So it just follows it around. That creates like a little wheat sheaf look. Just kind of fun. And then we can do, so I'm going to finish off these radial lines with more cloud shapes, just hugging those lines there. And I can break that up, draw some dots, and keep going. So this is starting to feel more encapsulated. And another fun thing that we can do is radial bubbles. This is, I don't know what else to call it, but you do little circles inside circles, and we can start anywhere, and you just go bigger and bigger and bigger. So we start with a little circle, we go around, and we tuck those circles behind whatever it's touching. And then you can finish it off by just drawing little dots in those corners. So I've got this fun, dynamic little spot. The next thing that we can do to fill out this space, let's do more fish scales. I think we need fish scales right here in the corner. And I'm just letting them move and do, I'm not keeping them straight. Just drawing these little arch shapes around and around. and drawing inside those shapes. So we've got some fun decorative elements that are happening here. And in order to make it feel a little bit more finished, we want to polish off these little negative spaces. You see how you have these little triangles of negative space here, here, you even have one here. You want to look for those triangles and fill those in with something. So whether it's just like a little curly Q, something that looks like a little pigtail, you know, or a bunch of little different size dots. And what we're doing is we're filling in those negative spaces of the triangle, and we're getting this shape, this basic shape that we penciled in. The eye is starting to see it. So I'm gonna change my, so do you notice how this looks pretty amorphous and shapeless, but here you can almost see the nice border that's happening. It's starting to come through. And if you're feeling like, well, this just feels a little like it's not enough, you can always go back and add more weight to those cloud shapes and thicken them up. And then it creates a little bit more substantial stuff. So it's really, really fun how you can keep the structure. And Ruby says it can also be pretty if you go outside the border, and that's 100% true. The nice thing about the border is when you keep it in the border, you can have asymmetrical details and it still feels symmetrical. So that's really, really fun. So I really love doing this technique. We can finish this out. I'll work on finishing this out and just kind of dictate what I'm doing as I do it. But if you have questions about this, about the handouts, which I will just copy and paste right here in the chat. Please don't hesitate to ask any questions. Oh, I did forget to mention. So if you're doing this on a notebook, one thing, especially when you're working with the faux leather notebooks, it's basically a plastic surface that has some texture to it. One of the things that you want to think about is keeping a very light touch, but also prepping your surface. I use rubbing alcohol, and I will, a cotton ball, and I'll just prep my surface with a little bit of rubbing alcohol. Let that dry, and for some reason that lets everything stick so much better. So this right here, see how that line is coming through really nice and bold? It's because it's been prepped, and I can't remember if I prepped this. See, I didn't prep this part. So you see the difference? This line is coming through and that line is skipping and bubbling almost. And just, it's not wanting to adhere to the surface. So that is something that you'll want to consider, is prepping your surface with a little bit of rubbing alcohol. Okay, so Mrs. Marie asked, do you use anything to seal the work after it dries? I don't. These are, I mean, they're journals, so I tend to baby them a little bit, but they're not rolling around in a dishwasher or things like that. So I don't particularly seal them. You can always seal them if you're not entirely sure what to seal them with. There's a really great Krylon sealer you can get at Michael's. I use hairspray, which is really helpful. because pretty much everybody has hairspray. Yeah. So the black notebooks, unfortunately, I don't know where to find them anymore. I wish I could help you with that. The brand is Paycon. I'm sure I'm butchering the pronunciation, but I have not been able to find them for a few years. So, but the Art Again by Strathmore, which you can find at Michael's, is really, really great. That black notebook is really fantastic paper. It's archival. It's something that you can use for framed pieces, and it's really, really nice.
Hey, Melissa,
So
there was a
yeah.
question that you missed earlier. Someone was asking if you had the handout in the lowercase alphabet as well.
Okay, so this alphabet is what's called a single case alphabet. So it is just one case, which is really great to work with. You only have to know how to execute 26 letters instead of 52. So that's the beauty of it. It's really fun and playful. If you do have questions, you're like, I want to do a letter this way, but it's not in the exemplar, just message me on Instagram. I'm at Melissa Fur. My Instagram handle is right here, Melissa Fur. You can find me there. Feel free to message me. I'm happy to help you out. So unless we have any other questions, hold on just one second. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you in the class. And whoa, we're upside down. It's been a pleasure to have everyone in the class. And if you have any questions, reach out to me on Instagram. I teach calligraphy online at calligraphy.org. And I am more than happy to share any of the information that I have. I have no secrets.
Well, thank you so very much. We hope you all will come back and definitely review the recording that will be available on tomorrow. So we thank you all and hope to see you again. Bye.
Thank you so much.